Before we kick off, let me ask you two quick questions. I know it's early, so I'm not going to make them challenging questions. They're about as easy as they get. Quick show of hands, who here is actually interested in the concept of success for yourselves, for others? I know, it's like a total gimme. And like the only question that I know that's actually easier than that is who here is interested in happiness for themselves, for the family? I know, right? Thank you very much. That means I can say it's a pleasure to be here for a number of reasons. A, because I get to talk about two things that I'm fascinated by and have studied for a bunch of decades. And two, because apparently you're interested in them as well, which is great. That being said, it's also a challenge to talk about happiness and success because they don't tend to go together as often as we'd like. And when they do, they rarely go together the way we expect. Let me tell you a quick story to kind of illustrate. About 4 years ago, I was sitting in my living room back in New York City in our apartment, and it was a Saturday night. I was really, really excited for this Saturday night. I've been looking forward to it for weeks, months maybe. Not just because I've been traveling or because I've been working, which I had, but because my wife and I had been binge watching Breaking Bad for months. And you know, if you travel, that binge watching with a partner is a really challenging thing to do. So we were down to the last 3 episodes. And it was Saturday night. We had put our little boy to bed. I'd made popcorn. I had a bottle of wine sitting there. I had my finger literally hovering over the play button on the Apple TV remote to kick this whole shindig off. And right before I did, my phone rang. Now, for some stupid reason, I had left my phone on the coffee table in front of us. And what popped up was no caller ID. Now, as we all know, when you get no caller ID on your phone, you don't pick it up, especially on a Saturday night, right? Well, unless you're single, of course, which clearly I wasn't. And yet, for some reason, I decided to lean over, grab that phone, and despite my wife shooting daggers at me, say hello. Well, the voice that came out of that phone came barreling out like it had been shot out of a shotgun. He said, "Hi, you don't know me. My name is John Doe." Now, let me be clear. His name wasn't John Doe, which would have been creepy. But I absolutely did know him. In fact, most, if not all of us here would know him because John Doe, as we're calling him, is one of the most well-known musicians in the world. Now, at this point, I had been coaching high-level athletes, high-level musicians, high-level executives, and folks like that, but high level, not like that level. Excuse me. So I was kind of shocked, and all I could manage through like popcorn stuffed mouth was, hello. That's all I had. He kept going like I hadn't said a word. He said, "Look, ever since I was a kid, I have known what success looks like. Ever since I was 9, I picked up my first instrument. I knew what success looked like. When I would jam, I knew exactly where I wanted to get to. When I got my first agent, I told her exactly what it was that I wanted to do. When I got my second agent, I told him the same thing. This is what I need to do. I know when I get there, that'll be my benchmark." And it's finally happening. I am finally doing a solo concert at Carnegie Hall. And I was like, I was still shocked. I was like, "That's amazing. When's it happening?" He goes, No, I don't think you understand. It's happening right now." And I looked at my watch. I was like, "It's 9 o'clock on a Saturday night. Are you calling me from intermission?" He said, "Yes, I am. I just walked off stage after the first half. I walked right up to my manager. I told him exactly what I just told you. This is exactly where I've wanted to be for years. And I realized that I'm here and I'm miserable. I'm a miserable father. I'm a miserable husband. I'm a miserable human being. I don't even like music anymore. So where did I go wrong and what do I do next?" Now, in all honesty, what I said to him, and I'm shocked that I was actually able to bring myself to it, was, "Well, you get back on stage, you finish this concert, and we talk tomorrow." But this is a true story, and it's also a cautionary tale. And that is exactly what I want to talk about today. The relationship of success to happiness, of work to life, of how we all experience it and how we can all make the most of it. Now, my interest in success and happiness began very young. My first memories in life, when I was like 3, 4 years old, I would crawl down the stairs in our little house in Pittsburgh, and I'd hide on the landing, and I'd peek around the corner after bedtime and watch my parents in the living room, which also sounds creepy, I know. But my parents were musicians, and I would watch them play together, and they were professional musicians. My father was in the Pittsburgh Symphony as a flute player for 45 years. My mother was an opera singer who would go on to sing at London and Paris and Milan and at New York's Metropolitan Opera. So for me, in that little 3-4-year-old head, I knew they were successful. I knew they were in front of all these audiences. And I was like, well, of course they're happy, right? I get to watch them playing music. They're successful at what they do. And this is what I figured for the next 19 years. But 19 years later, right out of college, I got a job as an agent for musicians, a large company called ICM, International Creative Management. Actually, technically, I wasn't an agent. I was an assistant to an agent. Well, actually, I was an assistant to an assistant to an agent. We all have to start somewhere. But what I started to realize was that there were definitely folks like my parents. There were people who were enormously successful, singing all over the world, performing all over the world, doing massive venues. And they were really happy. They seemed to have it all together. They had their families, and they had things going on. They enjoyed what they were doing. But what I didn't expect was the entire other half of the industry, which was just as, I should say, of our clients, who were just as successful, singing everywhere, name up in lights, marquee, headlines on the backs of buses, right? And they were miserable. They would be calling me at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, crying into the phone from somewhere that seems to be a wonderful place, saying, I haven't seen my family in months, or I don't have a family, or I don't do anything but this. I hate what I do. And this happened for so long, for the better part of a decade, I finally thought, I need to understand what's going on here. So I left. I left the business, and I decided to ask one question. The question was simple. It was, when do success and happiness coexist?